this is October 15th, Winchester NAC, kind of relatively spontaneous meeting. Thank you all for joining on this Thursday night. We're going to stick to a very tight schedule. I'm going to introduce myself, Kirk, President of Winchester NAC. Ken Pyle, go ahead and say a quick hello so we can get focus on you. Oh, and then Barbara, I don't know if is Barbara on the call? I don't know if I saw her as our treasurer. Well, we will continue to go through. If Barbara comes on, that'd be awesome. Okay, this is our agenda. We're just going to go through some standard kind of business function or group function. Then we're going to do a brief overview of our general area, focus on Pueblo play, and then mention how Agrihood and Pueblo play have kind of been cousins or sisters or brothers in the neighborhood, in the community. And first thing we always do, oh, before I do that, sorry. Want to acknowledge, I think I saw David from Chappie's office. We got a couple parks commissioners on here, both Daphna and Art. And I'm not sure, I can't see everybody. So if there are others, maybe put in the chat box and Ken can read them out as we go forward. All right, oops. So one of the things we always like to do is kind of share our vision for what the NAC is. This is our guiding message: ensure economic quality of life, ensure quality of life and economic development in the Winchester region through innovation. I mean, that's really what we try and focus on, what drives us as a community here, and what drives the Winchester NAC in a lot of its meetings. And normally we'd have a spot for our council members or someone from the representatives to update us, but we're not going to have that. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of them. Obviously, Chappie and Dev from District 1 and District 6 respectively, and then Dev Davis and Teresa O'Neill from Santa Clara in District 6 and in District 2. So briefly, and I'm going to try and stay on track here. We're going to cover in the next 5 minutes, we're going to cover a majority of the large projects in the area of the Winchester NAC. And the Winchester NAC is defined by Forest Prunridge at the north, Hamilton to the south, 880-17 to the east, and San Tomas to the west. It covers Santa Clara, San Jose, and Campbell. So there are actually 3 cities that are incorporated in this neighborhood of neighborhoods. So first, we're going to start off with Westfield, which is not really Westfield anymore. It's I'm not going to butcher it, I didn't have it, but Westfield Valley Fair that we know, we just completed their expansion, a $1.1 billion expansion. It'll have 2.2 million square feet of retail space when complete, which it is right now. And it opened just this past March, right as the pandemic was in full, just getting ready to go. Next, Santana Row, we all know this is about 700,000 square feet of retail space, over 1,200 apartments that might continue to grow. And it's obviously very walkable placemaking. It's the kind of the poster child of a lot of ground floor active spaces. They also have a couple of commercial buildings. This is 500. This is the Splunk building right on the corner across from Winchester Mystery House. They also have the 700 Santana Row, which finishes off Santana Row, rounding out the row, as they say. And that was completed last year and is owned completely by Splunk, other than the first floor, which is retail. Behind it, which is not visible, which you will at some point be able to see, there'll be a larger 900 Santana Row, which will be potentially residential or office. It's fully entitled that I think either at this point. Originally it was commercial, but we don't know what that's going to look like. And then across the street at Santana West, we have a 1.1 million square foot Class A development that Santana Row or Federal Realty is doing. This is a rendition on the lower right here of the one that's being built now with the parking structure behind it, but then it's going to have its twin on the other side of it. This is over actually in the Santa Clara space, just south of Walgreens off of Prune Ridge. This is just renting right now, 92 senior apartments, all market rate, just north of the Barrack site. This is a boutique hotel behind Santana Row. It's not built yet, but it's been proposed. Another hotel, this is the 76 over on Stevens Creek, right off the highway. This is the Cons restaurant project here, just all commercial, 95,000 square foot commercial, 5-story, 5 level. This is the 76 station on Winchester, just north of Santana West, is 27 apartments and 13,000 square feet of commercial office on the ground floor. Villar across the street from that, about 307 apartments, 18-story roof terrace, roof park, and 52,000 square feet of office and restaurant space. This is the reserve space. So this is the reserve look. This is the mobile home park, Winchester Ranch Mobile Home Park, but this is, I'm not sorry, not the reserve. This is the Winchester Mobile Home Park that's being, that just came completed last year, or in terms of being entitled or approved, of almost 700 apartments, no retail in that space. And then this is the 280 exit project, which I saw Chris on here from Ramona, who's very familiar with what's happening, or starting to get more familiar. We just had a couple meetings on this. The scoping meeting is kicked off on this. We don't know how much this project is. It's very ambitious. Some of us are questioning the rationale for some of this. Aaron Developers, this is on Winchester in the Cadillac neighborhood. This is 46 apartments and about 5,000 square feet of retail. This is the reserve. That's where I got a little tied up there. This is, I think it's called the Lynn Haven, okay, because it's in the Lynn Haven neighborhood. This is the reserve. So it was 200 something apartments. Now it's going to be 640 apartments, 641 with some ground floor retail. The Agrihood, this is the 6-acre space over by the Veterans across from Valley Fair, fully entitled. It just got the last round of funding from the state, I believe. So this is going to be about 361 living spaces, 325 apartments, 36 townhomes. It'll be mixed use, meaning there's going to be retail and residential. It's intergenerational and mixed income. So there's affordable housing on here. Some of the, I think 10% of all of Santa Clara's affordable housing will be on this site in that senior building for senior affordable. You'll have an outdoor space, placemaking, an urban farm, and about 20,000 square feet of outdoor pop-up space that can be used for retail and placemaking and things like that. It's very exciting. And that brings us to really the focus of tonight's meeting. That was really just for context, to really go through and show this is a lot of activity that's happening in our community, a lot of exciting activity, some scary activity, and there are some real gems in all of this. All these projects have their strengths, but this one is really community focused around parks, San Jose, and I'm gonna turn this over to Ken, so you can go ahead and take us through.
In addition to the ones that you showed, there's a couple others that, like the hotel project, which I know Gail and Tom are focusing on Winchester near Payne, and then there's some condos there as well. So a lot of activity. So what I'm going to do is I'll just set up just a few seconds and we'll show multiple videos. This one talks about kind of the history of how we got here.
300 plus volunteers, several great partners, and one fan favorite built a playground for probably 1/3 the cost and in 1/8 the time of what the city of San Jose could do. Watch the rise and fall of this playground in a series of videos that track it from the beginning in 2013, when it was just a concept, to San Jose's current plan to destroy the handiwork of hundreds of volunteers. As background, the nonprofit playground building organization Kaboom was the catalyst that brought together a loose group of neighbors, a faith community, a fiscal agent, and the Sharks Foundation to build a publicly accessible playground on private church grounds. And they gave this newly formed group less than 12 weeks to raise about $10,000, navigate the city's permit process, and prepare the site for Build Day. Build Day came, and it was like an old-fashioned barn raising, with lots of hard work and plenty of fun. That led to several community days, a Beautify SJ tree planting project, and placemaking exercises to help provide input to the city when the 1.9-acre property was sold to the city in 2017. The building of the playground was also one of the catalysts for the expansion of the Winchester Neighborhood Action Coalition and for its focus on using innovation to improve the quality of life in our region. A lighter, cheaper, quicker approach to planning is the type of innovation that the WNAC advocates for this park. It worked when we did it in 2014, and it can work again to create a park that will serve all the people of the surrounding neighborhoods, whether they are 9 months or 90 years old.
So that was the overview kind of how we got here. And that actually, the building of the playground led to the idea that the sale of the church, instead of going to a developer or someone, the logical person or entity would be the city of San Jose, because it had a playground, it had the community garden, had the preschool on there, and it would be a logical entity. And that sale happened in 2017. And this is a summary of the plan that was approved.
Now we're going to talk about the park at 3257 Payne Avenue. So its current conditions: it's got an old church building, it has a preschool that's actively used, it has the community garden, and it has the Sharks playground. The plan that was approved by the Parks Commission, it demolishes the church buildings, the preschool building, which is an old house, the playground associated with the preschool, and the Sharks playground built by the community. The phase 1 construction that will replace the playground with a new playground next to the fence here is slated to be finished in 2022. It will also add a basketball court, and that basketball court will be removed in phase 2, as will the walking path that had been added in phase 1. A community building will replace these amenities. The playground's over here, more parking, and this is projected for a construction of 2026, although it really isn't budgeted, and there's certainly no plan for it. But this plan that was in the PRNS submitted proposal said 2026.
So we'll go to part 2, I think, which talks about the concerns around the process.
So our concerns have been around the process. First, it wasn't market driven. 30% of its neighborhood radius, the water, is probably within the city of Campbell. It's right on the edge of District 1. There was also no analysis of the market itself in terms of who will be served by this park. This was the analysis I did. It was very crude, just showing what it is today. And of course, it's a neighborhood that's changing rapidly. There's a lot of development on Winchester, a lot of high density development, and it just seems that there should be a market-driven analysis. As certainly if this were a private development and they were trying to figure out who they were going to serve, they would have this kind of data. All the placemaking was done in a classroom style thing. It was off-site in Campbell locations, ironically. It was in the Rosemary School. It was also at a church in Campbell, but none actually on-site, none that the city led. The neighbors next to the park were never noticed with flyers. At least that's what 3 of them that I've talked to have said, and they literally are adjacent to it. When we built the playground, we not only made sure they knew about it, but we took the feedback and actually moved the playground away from the fence. We put it in the optimal spot. We also saw no effort to either maximize the value of the investment or reduce the budget, either through partnerships or maybe creative reuse, like with the Sharks playground. And those savings are real. That could go into other amenities, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be at this place, but it could be at Hammond Park, for instance, where there is demand for a walking path, for instance, or maybe some exercise equipment.
That was kind of where we saw the process shortcomings. Now we're going to talk about the actual playground itself. Before I move on to this, though, I wanted to point out Maria is on the line, and she was very helpful in handing out flyers when we did the when we did the noticing of the playground in 2013 to try to get the community involved. So hopefully she can speak to that when we get into the interactive portion of this. This first part of this is from the Parks Commission meeting, where Nicole Burnham is PRNS is suggesting that the existing playground cannot be used.
The structure itself is pretty standard run-of-the-mill playground equipment. It's not dissimilar to what we use. Where it doesn't meet standard is in the footings. Right?
Yeah, I just want to know if it can be donated. Can you make it available?
And about that Sharks playground, in the September 2nd Parks Commission meeting, it was said that the footings didn't meet code. A professional engineer's response to that was, there are no code requirements for footings. They are an engineered component. And why would the city have approved the playground if it didn't meet the code? And they did approve it. I went through that process. I was the one who took those photos. Why was it okay to use the Sharks playground in PRNS's November 2019 plan? They clearly had stated that they would upgrade the playground for safety compliance. It was probably for removing the fly bar and putting some kind of solid rubber surface so you could bring wheelchairs over it. PRNS did not provide a report showing how the Sharks playground is deficient. For instance, Why wasn't there a detailed report like what they provided for the status of the preschool building? And finally, the new plan is $200,000 more expensive. Again, this wasn't discussed in the Parks Commission meeting.
The concern is that that there are opportunities, I think, still to reuse the playground. We built it with Kaboom builds these things with municipalities all the time. So this next video talks about the need for community services and the distinction between community services versus a community center.
Park will be designed. It will be designed, if it is approved by council, designed with a community center. And but again, who knows what the future holds for that park? It might be, 25 years before a community center is built. And so we just don't know. I don't have a crystal ball.
I agree with the Vice Mayor. We don't know when it will be built. But we don't need to wait for something that may never happen. We can do something now. As such, the City Council should reject PRNS's August 2020 plan for the park at 3257 Payne Avenue. As background, PRNS identified the desired community services. Most, if not all of these services, are available in one form or another from public and nonprofit service providers today. Within a half mile of Cadillac-Winchester neighborhood, there are 3 schools, 2 preschools, and 2 churches. Collectively, these entities offer facility rental and programs such as food distribution, after-school care, parent education, and even a free legal clinic. Within a 2-mile radius, there are 3 libraries, Case at Del Mar, the Campbell Community Center, Starbird, and the West San Jose Community Center, offering everything from computer access to adult education to sports and recreation activities. Sure, some of these services could be improved. Perhaps they could be made more accessible, like, for instance, providing City of Campbell rates for Cadillac-Winchester neighborhood residents. There also might be a lack of awareness and the ability to get to these services. If mobility is an issue, perhaps the Stevens Creek Innovation Zone could be extended to the Cadillac-Winchester area for some experimentation with innovative mobility solutions. After all this, if it is still deemed that an additional facility is needed to deliver services, what about a long-term lease of a nearby commercial space, which could save money and happen sooner than constructing a new building? So the City Council should reject PRNS's plan. Let's refine PRNS's plan by working together with the community, school districts, the City of Campbell, the county, local churches, and anyone else who wants to help deliver services needed today rather than delivering them decades from now.
That was some of the artwork that was used for the playground. And I just want to show, this is a little bit older video, but it shows we were also looking at taking input we had from our placemaking meetings, as well as taking the ideas that were there and kind of massaging them a little bit. In this case, it's about moving the proposed community center.
In this video, we're going to look at the layout that PRNS is proposing for the park at 3257 Payne Avenue, and then look at some alternatives. But first, let's look at this drawing that we used in 2017 when the WNAC led a community placemaking effort at the site. There was some great feedback on what could be done in the various sections of the parcel. While the community-built Sharks playground will be demolished, a new playground costing approximately $550,000 will be built on the eastern side of the parcel in Phase 1. The motivation for removing the playground is the proposed community center in Phase 2, which is neither budgeted nor defined. But rearranging the community center to put it on the east side and leaving the playground in the same footprint, and in fact building around the existing Sharks playground, it would be possible to do the same Phase 2 goals, but not destroy the existing Sharks playground in the efforts that went into it.
So one last video, and then I'll stop here.
To recap, PRNS
this
said,
one, it shows a couple other ideas that, again, that we learned.
This is going to be a neighborhood park. So that's really important as we look at ways to improve the plan. And the following suggestions are from several community meetings, not just the community meetings led by PRNS. So the first thing, and I know this is outside the scope of what the Parks Department does, but having a safe crosswalk is really important for access. It'll make it much easier to cross from the south side of Payne to the north side of Payne. As the garden is expanded, One solution to getting their trucks in and out is to turn it 90 degrees. We have a preschool that's generating a decent amount of revenue. It can help fund maintenance and maybe even some capital projects. It also provides an example of a successful public-private partnership and could encourage others to invest in the park, allowing us to leverage limited city funds. In doing so, we'd want to keep the preschool playground, and maybe there'd be some way to make it available for use on the weekends. It was talked about the idea of adding exercise equipment for seniors and others. Add a tiny house or two for, say, one of our city workers or maybe a teacher to live in to provide that 24-hour, 7-day-a-week on-site coverage. It sounds pretty radical, but it looks like they're doing it at Alviso at the county park. If this worked as a pilot, why not expand it to all the parks in San Jose? It can make them safer, and maybe we could start to put a dent in some of our issues of housing. And similarly, why not test a community center? And one way to do that is with a modular building. And the nice thing about a modular building is, after you've decided that you want to have something more permanent, this could go somewhere else. It'll allow you to try things and understand what programming makes sense, what the needs of the community are. The restroom could either be built into it or as a modular unit itself. And instead of destroying the Sharks playground, why don't we look to add on to it to make it age inclusive? And as we do that, let's add some shade. Let's retain the trees that we planted as part of the Beautify SJ project. To understand phase 2, we would take an activated placemaking approach. This is where we try things, whether it's bringing in games, maybe having weekly food truck nights. We already have a food trailer on Saturdays. Whether it's fruit and vegetable exchanges or master gardening classes, there's all kinds of opportunities to do fun things here and actually put different elements in a temporary basis and see what do people like. And that leads to the budget. What is the budget for this? If we have a way to understand what that budget is and let people actually participate in the design and in the budget, it truly will be a community park.
Okay, thank you for indulging me. That's.
I'll talk about the Agrihood briefly, just in terms of, I mentioned that the funding, it looks like it's solidified, it's ready to go. They just got that last round, so I think they're ready to break ground, and early next year is first quarter is when it's scheduled for, which is exciting because some of the placemaking aspects, maybe they can carry, maybe these can have some synergies over here. But it's just really exciting for the NAC to have these incredible opportunities of change, hopefully positive change, and hopefully we can continue to make them positive changes. And lastly, before Ken closes on this, I'll just say, you know, the level of professionalism and quality of being able to communicate information quickly and efficiently in the videos that you do, it's just, I mean, I don't know if anybody makes videos on their own, but it's very hard to create content in a video form. It takes a lot of time. And Ken has invested incredible amounts of personal time in trying to convey his thoughts and his vision and his messages in this way. So I just want to acknowledge that it is incredibly hard what he's doing, and just the incredible persistence and dedication. So thank you, Ken, for your energy in doing this.
Well, thank you, Kirk. It's I get energized from the ideas and the feedback that I'm getting from everyone else. So the other thing we did in the last several days was start a survey, and that's something, again, we can share as we want, you know, as you guys want. I mean, now we could just, I think, pretty much go to a Q&A. We've gotten about 80 responses from the survey, and so.
Yeah, so I'm just going to put up one last slide on the screen. And this is if you want to get more involved or understand a little bit more about this. The videos that you just saw will be is on the site. It's we link to it off of the NAC site, so you can get to the Pueblo Play WordPress site that Ken created. And that's really what the purpose of this first half hour is, to get through all that material. I know there was a lot, and is really to focus on Pueblo Play as and so now we'll just get into the general questions and I didn't put the URL to the survey, but we did that on both the website and in the letter that we sent out. So with that, so if I could ask you just to maybe, if you have a question or you just want to speak out, so we can try and have a little bit of, if you could use the chat feature and just say, I don't know if it's a technical term, say stack, meaning you want to place yourself on the stack for queuing up to ask questions or make a comment. That seems to be what I think works really well, and I'll monitor that and just kind of add people as I go, because normally I would just go around the room and whoever has a hand raised, just kind of call on them, but it's a little less easy to do that way now. So if you could do that, if not, if you just maybe take your microphone off or flash it a couple times, that'll signal to me to you know, say, why don't you go ahead or something like that. So Ken, do you want, while if people are wanting to ask questions, first of all, are there any general questions or thoughts or just general comments or feedback? So I see Lloyd.
Yeah, hi. Well, Ken and I were just on a meeting, Eden neighborhood meeting with Chappie, and you know, some questions were obviously asked about the park, I guess. And I had sent a bunch of questions that supposedly the Parks Department is going to answer next week. So it's you know, Chappie didn't Ken chime in. He didn't really say much. He was trying to be politically correct.
Well, we have David is on the line. I don't know, David, if you wanted to share, is there anything that is different that, I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but I don't mean to do it in that way. If you're not comfortable sharing anything, that's cool. But we have someone from chat, you know, his chief of staff is here. If you're comfortable responding to Lloyd, or if you did already, I don't know. I wasn't at that meeting.
Well, I think what's important to understand is that the Parks Department is going to be coming out with their memo. And in that memo, it'll speak directly to what their findings are. And for us to comment before that is very premature on our part.
Yeah, but David, I'm sorry. Those questions, I don't know if you saw those questions I asked. I mean, those questions are pretty, should I say, in my humble opinion, common sense questions that should have been, you know, they should have the answers right now. They don't have to, they're coming out with, they're answering the mail, you know, the cows are already out of the barn and now they're trying to herd them up. And, you know, those questions were basically questions that should have been considered in the overall decision-making process. And like I said, in my humble opinion.
All right, so Lloyd, go ahead, David, go ahead and respond to that briefly, but I don't want this to become a debate of
right.
what people should or shouldn't do. No, that's okay. I mean, it's an emotional thing, but David, is there anything you wanted to share before we just kind of, because I'd like to take that offline.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, great, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions that you just want to share? I'm gonna be scanning. If you take your mute off, I'll just recognize your name so that you can start speaking. Maria, I saw you flash.
Yes, how you doing? My name is Maria, and I and Ken was the one who started with all the idea about Pueblo Play. So first of all, the questionnaire I haven't received, and I live very close by, and I don't know what questionnaire that the city has sent. I don't know if they're supposed to send it. We have been sent. I don't know. I don't have it. So if there is something that involves like the survey that I'm planning to do it like tonight, and I'm trying to share it with other neighbors around the area, definitely we're willing to go ahead and respond all those questions. But the one that has been sent by mail or something like that, I don't have no idea what kind of question is that. And one comment really quick that I wanted to make is that with the area of the preschool or the daycare is, the building was made for like a emergency place. Like on the ground of that preschool, it's like an area where it could be safe for any type of environmental or, you know, catastrophe. People could be on the ground. So that spot right there, it has been built for that. So destroying that and to put a park there where we already have a park, it will be a waste. Because that I know of, we don't have that something like that I know of in around here, and maybe somewhere else far away, but not in this specific area that I know of. So that is one of the reasons why building the playground in that specific area where the city wants to do it I think it will be something that it will be like very sad, because it's something that we have there for a secure purpose as well. That's how the building it was built before. So that is my comment so far, and I will continue. Yeah.
I just wanted to add something to Maria is the reason the park was built, the playground was built. Maria was a longtime member of Pueblo de Dios, the church there, and she literally called me when she found out that this Kaboom thing could potentially happen, and she was amazing in terms of organizing the community, organizing car washes, organizing fundraisers, and so she's very familiar with the area and in getting people organized. She's an angel.
So, and I just wanted just to summarize two things. First is if David, if maybe you and Maria could connect to make sure that she's on whatever Parks is, however they're reaching out. You just sounds like there's a disconnect there from wherever she is or her community. And the second is, Maria, I'd ask you to make sure you write that comment down and submit it to the city, or maybe to Ken to make sure it gets over there. I'm not sure who the right person is, but Ken obviously knows. You probably know. We've got other folks on here that know, but just make sure you capture that and submit it. Or David just put his email in the chat box for you, Maria. So you could I would send him a note with those two comments. First is make sure you're on a list, and the second is to end that comment. And so Daphna, I see you are unmuted.
I just wanted a couple of clarifying questions. One is, I was confused as to what Maria was talking about, that there's a PRNS survey. I thought that Ken was the one who put out a survey. So is there also a PRNS survey? I have not seen one.
No, I didn't mean to imply there was. Whatever PRNS is doing to communicate with the community is all I was saying, however that connection is. But the only survey that I know of is Ken's.
Okay, so I think that we're mixing things up right now, and we're not clear. Okay, so there is no PRNS survey going out. There's one from Ken that he sent out that he got 80 responses from. I think that I want to make sure that, first of all, is that in Spanish?
I don't.
No, I could barely get it in English, but I would gladly put one in Spanish. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is, especially since we've got a multicultural neighborhood and there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people in the neighborhood. I think it's really important that we have it in 2 languages. I really think that there's a huge equity issue in an all-English survey. Huge.
And I agree. And again, the PRNS didn't have a survey at all. It would have been,
So hold on, just to. First off, if we can find a way to translate that, I think we should. I think there's no I don't think there's a question on whether we should or shouldn't do that. Who can do that? If Ken, I don't know if Ken has capacity. If you can help do that, or if somebody can help Ken get it translated, and so it can be shared with others for sure.
Right. I just because I was going to say my concern is, so there isn't a PRNS survey. There's one Ken put out, and the big push, and David can fill you in, but the big push in the city for the last 2 years is equity, and it's going to be going that way going forward. And we can't present findings from a survey, whether as you said, Ken's put out some really professional stuff, which is great, but we can't put out documentation, and I wouldn't want to ruin the reputation of anybody who's doing anything really well by not looking at this under an equity lens from start to finish. It's a real issue, and it's been my issue watching what's going on too.
Watching what's going on with
the whole process. I think that there have been people in both neighborhoods that adjoin this, both Eden and the Cadillac-Winchester, who haven't been notified of meetings and haven't had the opportunity. I mean, I was shocked to go to some of the meetings where people that lived a block away, either in either neighborhood, never got noticed on meetings. Didn't matter which.
And I think that's what Maria was saying. She wasn't noticed. Is that right, Maria? Is that what you were saying? You didn't know about any of the meetings?
Yeah. Well, I knew some of the meeting because I will see some email from you, but something that that it was actually public place around or sent, no, I was not aware.
Mm-hmm. And Maria, were you thinking that there was a survey or a questionnaire that was coming out from PRNS?
Yeah, I thought when David and the other gentleman was talking about something about that it was some common sense and things like that, I thought it was something else. So yeah, that I don't know. Probably that's what happened when you unite all the minutes, which I'm going to go ahead and try to be on top of that. I don't know what who's talking about, what kind of common sense question the other gentleman and David were talking about. But the service they can send me, yes, I do have that, but I thought that we had something else, but I guess we don't. So I apologize. I confused everyone.
No, that's okay. No, I'm just trying to clarify, because one of the things that I've been really concerned about, we've got a park coming in our area too, and we've got people that are 2 doors down that don't get notified. So, and we've got an entire Winchester ranch that doesn't get notified of the park that's going where their homes are. So it's a huge issue about notification. And so I just want to make sure that there's, the equity is there both in language, so that we don't have any kind of barriers, because some of the meetings I've been to have had amazing translations, by the way, for people, just of the highest quality that I've seen. And I just want to make sure that everybody's always equally represented. And I just wanted to say something, because, and I'm not saying this as somebody who's on the commission, but there are so many varying ideas and points of view on this park. I have never seen this many, ever. And everybody's got their passion on this park. And this is one of those things where I honestly believe that, first of all, you're going to get a park. Yay, everybody needs a park. But at the same time, I don't think everybody's going to get everything that they want, personally. I think that there are some good solutions to some problems. And but I don't think that, and I've just cautioned people not to get stuck in my way has to be the way that we move forward, because you don't want to keep stalling the park and stalling the park and stalling the park. So just working together with both communities to make sure that it's acceptable for everybody, especially phase 1. I'm super concerned about getting a community center there at a minimal cost of $30 million with no funding.
So I just put a link in the YouTube or in the chat. It's a YouTube video, and hopefully it's the right link. It's one to a Spanish language version of just the whole idea of what you were just talking about, Daphna, as far as community services versus community center. And we did do that one as a translation into Spanish. There's another one we did early on when we did our placemaking in 2017. We did a Spanish version as well. I would happily translate the survey into Spanish or work to do that. I think that's a great idea. And again, all this is kind of non-official stuff, right? And I'm surprised that wasn't done, or there wasn't, like, with the noticing. Maria and I actually went door to door and dropped flyers off when we did the park. So it seems like the park PRNS could engage the community as the grassroots to do that kind of thing even.
So I appreciate, first of all, that hopefully we'll be able to move on that and get that done, Ken. Just so that there's, I mean, more than 2 languages would be even better, but I mean, it's all about capacity. It's what can we do as a community as volunteers right now. So if we have other volunteers that can do other languages, I would encourage everybody to raise their hand and reach out to Ken and do that. But I also don't think we should not do something because we haven't done the complete cover all our bases communication style. Like when I was talking to Ken about this, and I don't think Art was part of the commission when this was brought before, but it sounded like the commission supported this current phase 1 in design to move this forward. And I guess my question is, I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable answering that, but I don't know if you're comfortable responding to that as a lead there. Daphna, would you be able to talk about why that got approved from your perspective and you approved it?
Let's see. And I'm not sure what I have to be really careful because I'm not sure what my position is outside of that. One of the things, yes, it did get approved. And I actually, we didn't hear, to be honest with you, there are very few people speaking about it. There weren't, like all of the ideas that you presented tonight, Ken, in the videos, almost none of those were presented to the commission. So I've seen it, but I'm the only one who's seen it. So none of the other commissioners has seen any of that stuff. One of our other commissioners, Rudy Flores, has been out to the site, but none of the other commissioners have been out there. I don't think it would actually help if they went out to the site, to be honest with you at this point. But the alternative ideas should, I think, during that commission time, they should have been brought out during the commission time. And I think that it was really difficult. I mean, I was the only one who said something like, I'd like to save the Sharks playground. I think actually Rudy did too. Rudy said something about it too. And I was trying to at least, like, can you keep it all the way through construction? Can we do something to, you know, the hard part for me is that, and I'm just going to say this as somebody who's been, you know, steeped in parks for the last 5 years in the city, is I've seen the kind of parks that they're building now, which are the all-inclusive parks. They're really extraordinary. And I would hate to say, because and this is where I'm on the fence about this, I'd hate to say, well, we're not going to have one of those great all-inclusive playgrounds because we're going to keep the Sharks playground. That's the part that really is hard for me. You know, like, I'd love to see one of those fantastic all-inclusive playgrounds, but if we keep the Sharks one, we're not going to get one of those. And that's where it was really, really difficult for me. But here's the other part is I totally appreciate, and I feel like for all those people that put in such hard work, it's, you know, something has to be done about that too. And I'm just not sure how you weigh all of that. It's a really tough issue. And it really seems to be the Sharks playground versus a community center that's way in the future. That's kind of how it seems.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for looking up for the park and be there. But I don't think there's any reason for us not to have the nice park. I think just have that as a route, you know, and expand it a little bit more, add a little, and put in a little bit of addition, you know, to make it like more like the extraordinary park. You know, I don't see why the Shark park right there will be like a route for continuation instead of, you know, just let's take all these out. And because I made a comment to Ken where I told them, you know, it's nice when you have the money available right there, you know, and you could go ahead and create something nice. But, you know, like it's priceless when you build something out of nothing, because actually that was built out of nothing. So I'm agree with you. Nobody's going to be happy, and then we cannot please everyone. I'm totally agree with you. But why not have that as like the first rock, you know, to continue building and things like that. And about other community center and things like that is supposed to be in the future and things like that. One thing that I noticed, you know, where the food bank wants to provide food to the community, they go to Rosemary or they go to the church, and there's always an issue at school because they're destroying the grass or the kids are running around and things like that. When they go to church, the same thing, because those are private places. Well, you have something for the community where they have the park available, you know, and things like that, and also something where you could like create something like for the community, give out the community any let's say like a place where people, I want to rent it. It will be like an income too. I want to rent it so I could do Zumba, you know, every other day, you know, and things like that, which it will help the community. And about the adding the playful exercise and things like that. Hey, I'm here, I'm a parent, I'm working out while I'm watching my kid playing, instead of, like just an area where I heard that they were going to put a game table and things like that, where now the kids don't play game in table, they play game in the cell phone, the computer, and things like that. I seen Starboard Park where there's a game table, and what they do is people drinking and gambling in there. So that is, if we build something like that, it will be like bringing those type of people at the area where kids probably, or the parents will be afraid to be there because, all these things are going on.
So I want to be mindful of people's time. We scheduled this to be an hour. So half hour was kind of that meaty stuff, just kind of like just presentation stuff. And the second half is dialogue. And we've heard from a couple of people. I just want to make sure we hear from everybody. If there are other people that want to share comments while we have time.
Can I just say one more thing? I'm sorry, I waited a second.
Yeah.
I agree with Maria 100% on everything. I do. The reason that we're at this point is because the community doesn't agree with each other. If the community doesn't come together and agree with each other, then that's why we're here where we are now. So like, and the only reason I'm saying that is because I'm doing a park too right now, same size park right now. The community has agreed. So it's moving forward a lot faster. And so when you have disagreement, and I haven't seen this much disagreement on what should be in a park and where and what time and all of this stuff since I've been on the commission. So if the community got together, and I think they're 100% behind the plan, then I think it would be different.
So go ahead,
I was just going to say, I'm not so certain that the community's not together. I think that's a big part of it is the process and the way the process was done.
Ken, that's not what we heard at the commission. There were different people with different points of view on what they wanted and where and when, and
they were saying things. I mean, of course, everyone wants a community center. They want all these services and stuff. But the question is, what can be done in a practical standpoint, right? I mean, it seems like it gets back to the whole thing of what is practical from a marketing standpoint. And, it gets back to, is this going to be a neighborhood park or a regional park? And
it can only be a neighborhood park. It can't be a regional park because it's not big enough.
Exactly. And a $30 million community center makes it a regional park. The catchment area for $30 million is going to have to cover a couple miles. People are going to have to be driving there. So that's the contradiction I see.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also just observation, something you mentioned, Daphna, I thought was really kind of spot on. You don't want to leave something to prevent something else from occurring. Like those are magical parks. Santa Clara is doing one. There are not a lot of them. Palo Alto did one. The Rotary Play Garden is another incredible, probably the kind of crown jewel of the county, frankly, from an inclusive park. But to from hearing, those are few and far between. I think it requires special funding, and what I heard was, well, we don't want to leave this and not allow us to have that. But if we're not going to if that's what we're saying, if we're going to take Sharks Playground out and we're going to have an inclusive playground that has all the bells and whistles, that's inclusive, it's like the Rotary Playground type thing, then that's a different, I haven't heard that before. I haven't heard that that's the intent. And if that's the intent, then that needs to go part of the discussion as well. But what I'm hearing from Ken, and I will be the first to say I am not fully plugged into this. I'm just trying to facilitate what I've seen as a real disconnect in terms of community asset and value and what actually a city is doing with that asset and value. And the community has spent a lot of time trying to mature the idea. And I don't know if the city has either. I've seen the city not hear that from when we did the placemaking thing. I obviously from that point forward, I don't know what's happened since then, but it doesn't sound like it's good. If the result of if the output is Ken putting together a video that says, reject this, because Ken is a pretty flexible guy. It's not like he's trying to say my way or the highway. I've never seen him say that. matter of fact, he's probably more of the accommodating. But he's tried to create a framework for a discussion, and what I see is I don't see the city, frankly, respecting that what has happened or honoring the time that's been spent to do that. And to hear the commission, the Parks Commission, approve the current plan, knowing that the noticing was maybe jacked up, noticing that maybe there's some conflict of what's going on, and not wanting to dig a little deeper. I'm just surprised. Like that's not how we get better community engagement.
Well, that's not
just
true.
Move it forward.
The two things you just said weren't true.
Okay.
One was we were never told about the noticing. I didn't hear it until tonight.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough.
And the other was there was one other thing you said that wasn't true. I forget.
Community support. It was about community. Having a vision that conflicts with the community, or there's like all these different ideas of the community. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's assumptions that you're making that weren't true. That's not what happened.
Okay.
I think it's really important to understand that, at least from my perspective, sitting there that night, there were a few differing views coming out. There was not a lot of people speaking. It could be the whole Zoom thing. People don't come on as much. Meetings aren't as big. Who knows? But it was interesting in that people, Ken, what you're doing tonight is much more powerful than what you did at the commission meeting. Much more powerful.
I don't think I was allowed to show a video then, and I actually had produced a couple videos prior to the meeting and sent those out.
Mm-hmm. But even the points that you're making.
But thank you, by the way.
No. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, as somebody who knows you, I was actually surprised at your presentation. I thought you would have gone point by point like you did in some of the videos, and I think some of it got lost.
So Gail, you had looks like you want to chime in.
I just have a question. What neighborhoods were involved in the discussion and the preferences? I live in Hammond Park and very close to Winchester, but is it mostly Eden and Cadillac neighborhoods that are involved in the park? What that were involved in that original planning and discussion, or who all was involved in that? Just
at the city level or at the community level?
At
like
community level. Just curious about who these
Ken?
What groups were that were involved in the choices and planning.
Well, all the official PRNS meetings were held in conjunction with Cadillac-Winchester Neighborhood Association meetings. And then, the WNAC held a meeting on October 19th of last year, 2019, because we really started to look at the plan a couple months before that. Actually, a couple of women in the neighborhood had ideas for what they wanted to do at the park, and then that led to me. And at that point, I had pretty much, it was August of 2019, I was pretty much putting the park behind me. I was finally getting it behind me, and then we got involved in this again, and so we had a placemaking on October 2019, and then Eden brought in the vice mayor in November of 2019, and that I believe that he then got PRNS to delay bringing their plan to the Parks Commission, and they held another meeting in January of 2020. But again, that was in conjunction, I believe, with Cadillac-Winchester.
So sorry, was it primarily Eden and Cadillac neighborhoods then who were?
Yeah, and even the Eden one, though, wasn't really an official meeting because it wasn't through the parks, it was through the vice mayor. He heard the input, and apparently that got back to the parks that way.
So we're at official time, and we're at official time. So I guess I don't want to just have us talk about this without any kind of takeaways from this. Like I'll just from observation, again, I'm not as deep as knowledgeable as Ken. And others, but and I guess this is maybe would it be helpful if Ken or the NAC or others on this call participated to really detail the issues with the current PRNS proposal or design, Is
Can
that
I say
like
one quick thing?
Yeah, sure, Lloyd.
I respectively disagree with the commissioner. That last meeting that was held, I guess January 2020, that was held in the church, we in the Eden neighborhood said that there was poor notification. So I guess, I don't know if the park commission was there or just the consultants, but we brought it up in that meeting that there was the process of notification was lacking.
Okay, thanks, Lloyd. So I guess,
Lloyd, can I just say that that wasn't brought to the commission as a whole?
so Lloyd can't attend every meeting like that. If he makes comment, if someone makes a comment, he has to assume as a community member that it's getting funneled into the right channels. If it's an official meeting, I would assume. I mean, that's not fair to.
And by the way, just so he knows, I agree with him. I'm sitting in a neighborhood right now that's trying to do a park, and the people that are sitting on the land aren't getting noticed. So just
right.
You know that.
Yeah. So as a commissioner, I have to concur with you, Daphna, that you're on the end of a filter, so you don't necessarily see everything that goes in through the funnel.
Right.
So I mean, so Daphna, maybe and Art. I mean, I don't know how much you could speak to this yet, but just from a commissioner perspective, knowing more information now, would you have changed your perspective on supporting this plan? And would it be helpful if we drafted something and say, listen, more information is shared now that there's a little bit more awareness? Can we take that to, draft like a little internal letter, share that with the council before they vote on supporting this? So there is a little bit of time. There isn't a huge hurry, right? There shouldn't be a huge hurry right now to do this, given that we're all in Zoom land, we're all sitting at home and trying to figure out what to do. We have a lot of brain power to have access to. I'm putting it out there as a question for you, Daphna. Is there a way to turn this into something productive?
So you first asked me if I would change my mind after hearing this stuff, and I can't say that I would or I wouldn't, because I would have to have that conversation with the commission before. I'm not gonna do that individually and make a commitment one way or the other. I think I'm gonna be Joe Biden unpacking the court right now. I can't say that. And I think it's really, I don't know that they've necessarily gone back and said that they wouldn't go forward with the recommendation once they've gone forward with it. You can always try. I mean, you can always try to do what you think is the right thing,
Do we know when this is scheduled to go before council? David, do you have any idea?
Yeah, we just heard it was October 27th is the Tuesday after this one.
So a week from Tuesday. So between now and a week from Tuesday, if say we reach out to the various commissioners, the parks commissioners, and at least share this information to at least seed the information with them, maybe in the form of a letter or with links to your videos and stuff like that, to make people more at least aware of that. And then in the meantime, what else can we do? Like, what other suggestions can we, do you think?
There was one other statement that you made that I don't know the answer to, but I know it isn't true. So when you say that there isn't like a timeline and we don't have to push this forward and all of that, I do know that there are specific timelines that PRNS works through when they're working through a project. I don't know what they are in this case. I don't know what moves those things, but we can't make the assumption that there isn't something that there is a process that they're following.
Of course.
Saying, okay.
Yeah,
and
understood.
So I just want to make that clear.
Yeah.
That there is a process that there's being followed.
Understood. I'm not saying I didn't mean to imply it was arbitrary. But in the days of COVID, when our entire world is uprooted and changed, I can guarantee you whatever schedule they had in January is different now. That I'm confident of saying. Whatever it is, it's not the same. And if anything, it's longer. And I think we should allow us to be kind of intellectually curious on how can we do better on this particular thing, because so much time has been invested. Like the Agrihood, I spent 15 years on the Agrihood. Yeah. Should it have been built 6 years ago? Yeah. Or 5 years ago, should have been started? Yeah, absolutely. It should have been started. But it shouldn't have been started if they were just going to put up, you know, a parking lot and a DMV center or something like that. So not to say that this is the same contrast, but a $30 million community center where there's no clear funding at a deficits that we're running at, I think it's fair to question whether or not that's the right approach. And maybe that was a good approach 10 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago. But we need to always evaluate where we are now and with current information. And Ken Ken is a thorough guy. He details everything, and he has references and you know, backup data for all the stuff that he puts forward. So I'm just trying to figure out how can we put that energy to good use in a way that's productive and not just spinning wheels, because I think Ken spun his wheels for a long time, kind of, it sounds like gave up a little bit because he saw it was going in a direction that was different. And then when this came up like this, there was a chance to re-engage, and he got remotivated by that.
Right. Right. No, and I agree with you. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of questions coming up, but the Parks Department isn't here. So, you know, I mean, I'm just, did they say they wouldn't come? I mean, because there's questions that are, you know, valid questions that, I mean, the commission, as you said, we funneled to the very end. So it's really hard to answer questions as a commissioner, but only what, you know, the commission saw. But did Parks like turn you down to come to this meeting?
You know, this was a really an impromptu meeting. We, it came up really probably in the last couple of days. I think I proposed it on Monday or something. And Chappie just met with the Eden. Lloyd was on that call. Maria was too. And he met with the Eden neighborhood, and he actually had Eves from the Parks Department on there as well. So he heard some of this, but none of this is really new. I mean, I submitted so many videos to the parks, but to PRNS ahead of the meeting. We had met with them in April, and we documented, it was probably a 10-page document. There were several of us that were part of that meeting, people like Betty and Barbara Morey and
I know, others. I'm aware that
Oh, you might have been on that meeting too.
I wasn't.
Really?
No,
oh, okay, yeah.
I've had to stay out of those meetings, but
yeah.
So
there was a lot of that detailed documentation that wasn't referenced in the plan.
Right, and so my point was, if there's other things that have come up since then, or you felt that it just didn't get out there, then they need to be involved again. They need to answer those questions that you guys have now.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm hearing as the next step. And Ken, I don't know if you're comfortable with the contact that you have, if you think you're not being heard, or if you are being heard, or you just haven't reached out to that one specifically. I'm not saying we messaged this to the entire council and city staff and city clerk. I believe that's who this went to. So we didn't explicitly call PRNS and say, hey, listen, we have a meeting in 24 hours. Can you jump on? We didn't. I can say I didn't do that. And this wasn't necessarily something to put, we're not trying to put Parks on the spot for this. We wanted to share with the WNAC community that is closest to this, since it's almost in the heart of our community here, to bring this up and to see how people feel, if they have questions, it's like, yeah, it's good enough, let's just move forward. Or it's like, damn, why aren't we doing what we talked about before? That's kind of where that's what drove this, and the immediacy of this is the timeline to go from the Parks Commission kind of approval of the current plan to now. I think it's only been like a week, right? A week or two?
No, that was in early September.
Okay, so time is a blur for me. Sorry.
Yeah, and up until today, well, in the last couple of days, I realized that the meeting wasn't going to be on the 20th, but I thought the meeting for the council approval was going to be on the 20th, but it's actually, in fact, the 27th. So that gives more time.
All right. So again, we're at 8:40. I appreciate everybody taking this kind of really last minute time like this. And Ken, do you want to close us out with anything specific?
Well, yeah, just to point to a couple things in the group chat. Jean, thank you for sitting in on this and for sitting in on the previous message. And she makes a very important point about council policy on PRNS Outreach is very old and does not require them to notify people beyond advertising a community meeting with the help of council district office. The policy needs to be updated. So that might be something that we want to look at longer term. And I can imagine.
And I can say as a plug, as a shameless plug, I'm on the board of Catalyze SV. We have actually gone to staff and suggested about how do you upgrade and improve the community engagement policy and process. And that is one of the areas that we focused on. So I think there's a lot of people that know this needs to be improved.
And one other quick comment, Yareli says, I agree with Ken Pyle to leave the park. Would it be better to build build a community center where the preschool is? Thank you, Yareli.
And Ramona.
And Ramona wants to say something.
Ramona, go ahead and jump in real quick, and then we're going to close this off by 8:45. So we got 4 minutes.
Yeah, I have the matrix of the outreach for City Policy, and that does definitely need to be updated. I think the best thing at this point is that you need to advocate as many people to speak at that meeting or to send in a letter against at that meeting, or get a petition and have people sign on to it for that meeting, and urge the council to postpone the vote on this issue until more analysis has been done. And that, that's what I highly suggest at this point, is just that you have to have a bunch of people raise their voices and say, we do not think this should be voted on at this meeting, and we need to postpone it. And I think that's your best choice right now, because then you have more time to try and talk to PRNS, try and get more community feedback and whatever, and come up with something that I think would be a happy medium for everybody. Because you're not, like Daphna said, you're not going to please everybody. But if you could come up with something that the majority of the people can agree with, then everybody can move forward and be okay with that, because it's a give and take situation. But I really believe there was not enough outreach. And I think that's your biggest thing to advocate for, is that there was not enough outreach for this project, and it's a huge amount of money they're talking about putting into phase 2. If they don't want to postpone it, tell them at least don't do phase 2, just do phase 1 and leave it at that. And then a few years down the road, come back and rediscuss phase 2, but don't vote on that now. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramona. And Chris, you got about a minute and a half before we turn into a pumpkin.
Well, I just wanted to say that if your community engagement process sounds totally lacking, then of course a vote should be postponed until at least that component could get figured out. I mean, it makes no sense to move forward with something if your whole community engagement process is as lacking as it sounds like it is. That should be the first thing that the city corrects. So that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, Chris. No, I appreciate that. So why don't we take this as an action that Ken and I will go back and try. And first of all, survey is going to be in at least one other language. But in parallel, maybe we talk about doing some kind of petition or something that maybe Maria can help with, or Gail or Lloyd can get out to the local community, put it out on Nextdoor saying, listen, we need to stop City Council from this particular action right now, at least to delay it until we can have a meaningful conversation. Why don't we have council make a motion to engage the NAC or the community over here to have a good process that people feel like they've been heard, given input, and PRNS can report that to the commission or something like that. Is that something you're
I'm agree with you, and I'm on it, because that will be my plan. I did mention to Ken that I will go door by door and actually let the people around the neighborhood, because when they talk about neighborhood, it's an association, it's a group, but actually everybody knows. So I will be on it.
Okay.
And Joanna, I just wanted to say, Joanna added to the text. Would you have both communities to discuss and agree on something, and also bring in this commission? I think she was reinforcing what you said, Maria. Kirk, do we have everyone's email addresses?
I don't know. I don't know how everybody joined. I usually ask that. How did you hear about us Nextdoor, or the email, or Facebook, or something like that? But if you could email info@winchesternac.com. so that if you want to be included and help maybe get that petition circulated or reach out to your communities. I do want to close our meeting at 8:45. We were a little bit over. I appreciate we try and be very focused on people's time. So just assume that the travel time to and from the NAC has now been, the meeting has now been engulfed in that extra 15 minutes. So thank you very much for joining today. And we appreciate your time. We're going to post this on our website and we'll post it on Facebook as well.
Thanks, Kirk.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.